Well, I think people really misunderstand sort of the immigrant community as a whole. And the organization that I work for, we've recently done a series of pieces called Looking Forward, Immigrant Contributions to the Golden State, talking about the ways in which immigrants contribute to the state of California. This one is one from a couple of years ago, but the current one, this is the current one here. And you know, I think people don't know a lot about California's immigrants. That immigrants make up a third of the workforce in the state. That's a big chunk of the workforce, a third. That, you know, almost 30% of the population, 27% of the population is foreign-born in California, and that population is almost 45% U.S. citizen. You know, when people, sometimes you just say the word immigrant now and they think undocumented, right? They think that the person's here without papers. And actually, you know, if you look at the population of about 10 million foreign-born in California, about a little more than 2 million of those are here illegally, right, or unlawfully. But the vast majority are here lawfully, and you know, nearly half of those are actually naturalized U.S. citizens. And immigrants occupy a whole range of you know, you think a lot of times people have you know, the sense that immigrants primarily work in agriculture, in the farming, and it's true. You know, immigrants make up a big majority of agricultural workers, but they also make up a great proportion of construction workers, and you know, they pretty much predominate in the sewing industry. They mostly make up people who cook our food, and who work in restaurants and work as chefs, and you know, all of that. And they are also, you know, a high proportion. It's interesting because, you know, you have these segments of the community. They also, you know, occupy a big proportion of the PhDs in our communities, right? Because many foreign students come to our universities in California to pursue their education, and then they stay. So, you know, you have a very diverse community of immigrants in the state of California that I think a lot of times people have a very vague notion of. And unfortunately, I think some of the more negative and damaging rhetoric has pushed the stereotype of the immigrant to a point where it's really very inaccurate of who the community is as a whole.
Within California or in the country in general? Or?
Well, probably, I think in the country in general too, because you know, if you really, and I think this is another thing I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, because it's not something happening here in California, but it is happening in other parts of the country where, you know, our one of the largest immigrant populations lives here in California. New York is another state, Illinois, etc. But these large immigrant states are now seeing a reduction, not a reduction so much as a real shift in, you know, the numbers, where we of course still have a large proportion, but that number is dropping. And it's increasing in other states where, you know, they haven't had immigration at all, or you know, immigrants at all, almost, you know, very small proportion of their populations. Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, places like that. And that's exactly where you're seeing some of the most you know, unwelcoming the backlashes to the presence of immigrants in the state. And that's you know, where there have been, I think, misunderstandings about who the community is, what they're there to do, you know, what their role is going to be, and how immigration either enriches or changes a community depending on how it's received. So I think that it's important, you know, that that there's an important role for organizations like the one I work for, which is to really put out information about the ways in which immigrants contribute and the role that they play in society and in the economy. That's important for people to understand.